Hi, my name is Brooke and I work with Nebraska Agriculture in the classroom. And today we are going to learn about our world and soil and compare it back to Nebraska and the goods and services that we provide for people in our state and our world. So before we get started, I need you to gather a couple of supplies so that we can do the activity together. You are going to need a ball of Play-Doh. So I have a container of Play-Doh and I just took about half of it and I rolled it into a ball. And then I also have a plastic knife that we'll be using as a tool for our activity. So go ahead and gather these two supplies and then come back and resume the video. Now that you have all of your supplies gathered, can you tell me? So I said my name is Brooke and I work with Nebraska Agriculture in the classroom. How many of you have heard of the word agriculture before? What does that word mean? Agriculture is the science of growing crops and raising livestock. Crops are plants that farmers grow for us to eat or for our animals to eat, and livestock refer to farm animals. Farm animals provide us with a lot of different things as well. Can you name some crops that we might be able to grow right here in Nebraska? If you said corn, soybeans, wheat, dry beans, sugar beets, all of those things grow right here in Nebraska. What about livestock animals? Can you think of some farm animals that we could raise in Nebraska as well? Maybe dairy cows, beef cows, pigs, chickens. Those are all farm animals that we raise in Nebraska, and they all serve a certain purpose for us in our lives. Today, we are going to discover how Nebraska's agriculture provides us with goods and services each day. But before we do that, we need to know what a good and a service is. Can you tell me, what is a good? A good is a physical item that we can hold in our hands. For example, maybe a soccer ball or a bicycle. We can't hold the bicycle in our hands, but it's something that we can physically use. Or electronics, maybe a gaming system or a tablet or an iPad. Those are items that we can hold in our hands. But the most important good that we have in life is food. Food is something we must have in order to survive. We have four basic needs: food, water, clothing, and shelter. And those all come from agriculture in one way or another. Food is the most important thing that we need in order to survive. Who is responsible for providing us with our food? Farmers. In order for us to purchase the food at the grocery store, the farmer must grow it in their fields first or raise it on their farms. If a good is a physical item that we can hold in our hands, what is a service? A service is a product that people can buy that is not necessarily an object. For example, maybe a haircut. They provide you a service, but it's not something that we really get to take with us and use over and over again. Maybe a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment. They're checking our health or our teeth, and they provide us the necessary care we need. A teacher, our teachers provide us with education and skills that provide us and prepare us for a successful career someday. Or maybe your parents at home right now are helping you along the way with education. They're providing a service for you. A school bus provides transportation, which is considered a service. So if you have ever gone on a field trip somewhere, the school provides a service by providing transportation from one place to the other and back again. But farmers provide us with services every single day. And they provide us with services by growing our food and providing things that we use every single day. Can you think of other services that could help that relate to agriculture? Maybe veterinarians. Veterinarians can provide services for animals that farmers raise on their farms as well by helping take care of our animals if they're sick or hurt. There are a variety of different services in the agricultural industry that provide us with food, clothing, and shelter. Now that we kind of understand what a good and a service is, we are going to look back at Nebraska. Nebraska's number one industry is agriculture. Nebraska provides us with several different types of goods and services, such as food, clothing, and shelter. 91% of Nebraska's land is used to farm and ranch to provide those goods and services for people in our state, but people all over the world. We talked a little bit about some of the crops and livestock that we grow in our state. Some of those include soybeans, wheat, corn, and then our livestock animals, beef cows, dairy cows. They look different from each other. They provide us with different products. Pigs, chickens, just to name a few. We'll see a little bit more as we move on today. But our next step is going to be to use our Play-Doh. And I'm going to switch my camera back on so that you can see me. But can you tell me, what does this ball of Play-Doh represent? This ball of Play-Doh is going to represent the earth today. And we are going to look at the soil. Do you think there is more land or water in the world? There is more water. About 75% of the world is made up of ocean water. Can we grow our crops or raise our livestock in the ocean? No, we cannot. So as we look at this, we are going to look at the soil. Soil is really important to us because it is the foundation of where all of our food grows. Our first step is going to be to take our ball of Play-Doh and cut it into 4 pieces. So my first step will be to cut the Play-Doh right down the middle. So that we have 2 pieces. I want you to cut each of these pieces in half again. For a total of 4 pieces. So we have 4 pieces right here, just like we see on our screen. Can you tell me what one piece represents as a fraction? If we have 4 pieces and we cut them into, if we had the whole entire world and we cut them into 4 pieces, one piece represents 1/4 of the world. How many pieces would we need to make up the ocean water? We said the ocean makes up 75% of the world. That means we need to take 3 of these pieces and set them aside. So go ahead, leave one of your 4 pieces in the center of your table and take the other 3 pieces and squish them back up into a ball. Take a look at the screen, and we are left with just one piece. This represents what as a fraction? 1/4. So we have 1/4 of a fraction. And I am going to write this on a piece of paper so that we can follow along. 1/4. You can see, oh, it's backwards. We have 1/4 of a fraction left. This represents all of the land in the world. Are there places around the world that we cannot grow crops or raise our livestock animals? Yes. Where might those places be? Think of places that don't get a lot of water, maybe deserts. What's the opposite of hot? Cold, places that are way too cold to grow our crops. The deserts can be pretty dry too sometimes. So places that are too dry to grow crops need water to grow. Can you think of a place that might be too wet? Maybe swamps, rainforests. Although there are plants that grow in the rainforest, it's not the crops like our corn, soybeans, wheat, things that feed a lot of people are places that we can grow. So places that are too hot, too cold, too dry, too wet, too rocky. So maybe Rocky Mountains, too steep. The higher we go up, the thinner the air gets. And so we're not able to grow those crops in those environments. So I want you to take your 1/4 piece of Play-Doh and we are going to cut it in half. Take your knife and cut it right down the middle. We now have 2 pieces, as you can see on the screen. We have to take one of these pieces and we are going to stick that piece back into the rest of the world. This ball of Play-Doh right here that has the ocean water and that other chunk of land represents all of the places around the world that we still can't grow our crops. And we got rid of places that represent deserts, rainforests, places that are too hot, too cold, maybe Antarctica, swamps, places where we still can't grow our crops or raise our livestock. And we are left with this piece right here. Now we had 1/4 and we cut it in half. Can anyone tell me what we have left as a fraction? We have 1/4 and we cut it in half. We are left with 1/8. We have to take that 4 times 2 because we cut it into 2 pieces. And we are left with 1/8 of a fraction in the world. Are there still other places in the world where we can't grow crops or raise our livestock animals? There are. Can you think of those places? Where do we live? Maybe cities, towns. Where do we drive our cars? Streets, highways, interstates. Do we go grocery shopping or other places, right? Our shopping malls, grocery stores. We can't grow our crops there. Sidewalks. Sometimes we can grow plants in our backyard, but when we look at the way farmers and ranchers grow crops and provide and raise our livestock, we do not typically grow our plants to the extent that farmers and ranchers can. So sometimes we can grow food for ourselves, but it's not to the extent that farmers and ranchers grow our food. So we have to take, we can include national parks in this as well, because national parks are all natural. We're not allowed to use the land to grow our crops or raise our livestock. So we have to take our 1/8 fraction that we have here and cut it into 4 pieces. How I like to do that is I make 3 lines in my Play-Doh that I have left. You can see that. And I will cut it to make sure that we have 4 equal pieces. They'll be about the same size. But if you can see that, I have 4 pieces here. And we are going to take one of those 4 pieces. If you take a look up on our screen, we have our 4 pieces. I want you to save one piece and take the other 3 pieces, squish them back up, and add them to the ball of Play-Doh. This represents cities, towns, streets, highways, national parks, other places around the world and in our state that we still can't grow our crops. And we are left with this piece right here. If we had 1/8 of a fraction and we cut it into 4 pieces now, what fraction do we have left? This would be the fraction we have remaining. And we said we have 4 pieces. So 4 out of 1/8. We'd have to take 4 times 8 to find our fraction. And that leaves us with 1 over 32. 1 over 32 as a fraction. That represents all of the soil we have in the world to grow our crops and raise our livestock. That fraction is really tiny when we compare it to the whole entire world. But there's still one more catch. Do we grow all of our crops down to the core of the earth? No. We can only grow on the first 5 feet of topsoil. So now I need you to make one more cut with your knife. We are going to cut a layer off the top of our Play-Doh to represent the topsoil in the world. You can take this bottom piece and stick it into the rest of our ball of Play-Doh. And we are left with this tiny piece. It is still 1/32 of the world, but it's just the topsoil. The topsoil has all of the nutrients we need for our crops to grow and the land to raise our livestock. I like to roll it back up into a ball so that we can compare now. I want you to think of it this way now. If we took our ball of Play-Doh at the very beginning and we cut it into 32 pieces, we only get to use one of those pieces, and it's just the topsoil. I want you to take both balls of Play-Doh now and compare the two. Look how tiny this piece is compared to the whole entire world. How many of you are surprised by how much soil we have in the world to grow our crops and raise our livestock? It is a very small percentage and a very small fraction of our world. I want to jump back now and compare to Nebraska. So go ahead and take a look at the screen as we are left with just 1/32 of a fraction. Can anyone remind me what percentage of land do we get to use in Nebraska? We are very fortunate to use 91% of our land to raise goods and services for people in our state, but all over the world. This is a picture of Nebraska's population census data. It's a few years old now, but if we take a look at this, we are able to see the population in each county. Population represents the amount of people in a certain area. So if you live in Omaha or around Omaha or Bellevue and you're in Douglas or Sarpy County, you have a lot of people in your area. Douglas County has over 500,000 people just in that county. If you live in Lincoln, it's the second largest city in the state, and that falls in Lancaster County. So we have some pretty big cities in our state. As you look across the state, you can see some bigger cities as well through Scottsbluff County, Lincoln County, which is in the North Platte area. But as we look at this map, we are able to see where most people in our state live. So the darker the green color, the more people there are. If you look at these tan color counties across the state, there are less than 10,000 people in their county. That means we are able to use a lot of our land and for farmers and ranchers to grow the crops that we need for us to survive and for other people to use our resources through goods and services. So in western Nebraska, we have a lot of sand hills. They have a different soil texture where the people in the eastern part of the state have rich, nutritious soil as well, but it's a little bit different. So out west where there's the sand hills, it would be really hard for farmers and ranchers to raise their crops like corn and soybeans on these hills. So we are able to raise horses or beef cows out west really well so that they can graze on the land. We also raise potatoes and sugar beets in that sandier soil. When we put water into sand, it drains pretty quickly. And so a lot of our plants that require that moisture to grow our plants grow better in some areas like eastern Nebraska, where we have flatter land called cropland or row crops like corn and soybeans that grow really well. We have a very diverse type of land and soil throughout our state, which allows us to produce a lot of different goods and services across the state. So in Nebraska, we use 91% of our land. We raise dairy cows. We raise potatoes in western Nebraska. So we can make French fries, baked potatoes, mashed potatoes. Potatoes grow underground. We raise a plant that looks like this. It is called a sugar beet. This is the plant that gives us sugar. It grows underground like a carrot. So if you have ever helped your family bake cake or cookies and you have added sugar into the mix or the batter, it comes from a plant that looks like this. We also grow dry beans or dry edible beans in Nebraska. So anywhere from the kidney beans that we eat to great white northern beans, pinto beans, which we use to make refried beans. We're number 3 in production for dried beans. We grow wheat. Wheat is really important to us. We provide wheat to make flour to give us bread, cake, cookies, cereal, crackers, pasta. And then we have sorghum, which is really similar to wheat. So if you know someone who can't eat gluten or they have a gluten intolerance, sorghum is an option that they can choose to eat, which we're able to grow and produce a lot of bread and pastries as well with sorghum. We grow popcorn in Nebraska. Popcorn, we are the number 1 popcorn state in the whole entire United States. So we grow the most popcorn, more than any other state does. It grows on a cob just like our sweet corn does. We get to enjoy sweet corn as well. We also grow dent corn or field corn, which we can use to feed our cows. And then we grow white corn, which is a food grade corn that we can use to make Fritos, corn chips, corn tortillas, all of those tasty things. We grow soybeans in Nebraska. Soybeans are nicknamed the miracle bean because they have so many different uses. We can eat it as tofu, edamame. We can also eat it as soy sauce or drink it as soy milk. We feed it to a lot of our pigs and chickens in Nebraska, or we can make a biodiesel with it, which is a fuel. We raise our beef cows, which provide us with meat, our pigs for pork, and our chickens can provide us as layers. They provide us with eggs, or as broilers, they provide us with meat. These are just a few of the crops and livestock that we raise across our state. And agriculture is the number 1 industry, and we are very fortunate to use 91% of our land in our state to grow these goods and services for people all over the world. So with the limited amount of soil in the world, farmers and ranchers have to work every day to protect our soil. Farmers strive to be good stewards of the land so that their kids and grandkids can come back to the farm and work someday. Farmers use technology and engineering every day on their farms. Farmers use GPS technology to track their corn planting and their harvest and to keep data to increase their yields each year. They also use a pivot sensor, which is found in this picture right here, to conserve water on their farms. Some farmers use GMO corn or soybeans on their farms. Using GMO corn can help farmers plant corn in an area that maybe doesn't get a lot of rain. This is called drought-tolerant corn, and it can allow the farmer to grow that corn in an area that doesn't necessarily get all that much water and still produce a good yield that year. Soybeans can be Roundup ready, and it allows farmers to plant soybeans that repel pests or insects and diseases so that farmers don't have to spray chemicals or pesticides on their farms. GMOs have been researched over many years and allow farmers a way to be innovative and use that technology to better produce a higher yield in their fields. Can you remind me what percentage of land do we use in Nebraska to provide us with goods and services from agriculture? 91% is the amount of land we use in Nebraska. What fraction do we have in the whole entire world to grow our crops and raise our livestock? 1/32. So of the whole entire world, we can only use 1 out of 32 pieces of the world to grow our crops and raise our livestock. Nebraska is very fortunate to be able to use that 91% of our land to grow those goods and services in our state. So with the limited amount of land and soil, farmers work each day to provide for us food that we can rely on and that we can enjoy. So 1/32 of the world is the amount of soil we have available to grow all of our food and raise all of our livestock. And in Nebraska, we get to use 91% of our land to help do that. All right. Thanks for tuning in and joining us today.